Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Society of New Haven's online Sunday service. My name is Jen Kapranov and I am your worship leader this morning. If this is your first time joining us, or your first time back in a while, please contact us via email at membership@usnh.org so we can welcome you to our community. We meet electronically for now, but we plan to be together in person again in September. We invite you to bring all that you are, your beliefs and traditions, gender, race, class, sexual orientation, gender identity, and the wisdom of your years to this congregation. May you always seek your truth, speak your truth in love, and live your truth through service. And through all your days and nights, may you experience love. You are welcome here. Today we begin our month celebrating the theme of story. As we celebrate stories from different cultures and different times, it's important to remember that our understanding of the world has been shaped by the stories of our elders. As we live, we are creating our own stories that will be told to future generations. Who we are, what we do, and what we say will be preserved in these stories. A story is a gift. To receive one properly is not a simple matter. Listening is a skill that needs to be cultivated and requires the participation of our full selves. So let's celebrate our month of story by giving the best of ourselves as storytellers and listeners. We have a few announcements this morning. All are welcome to come to the community circle after the service today at 11:30. Please join the conversation, telling our stories, past, present, and future, facilitated by Karen Swanson and Amanda Detmer. Do you have an idea for a service at USNH? If so, you are in luck. We are looking for topics for 10 summer services. Contact our committee at worship@usnh.org if you have suggestions or would like to lead or participate in a summer service. Join the choir. Would you like to begin your week with a song? Join the USNH choir and raise your voice with ours in song. Try us for a few rehearsals, and you might well find yourself hooked. Even warm-ups are fun, both invigorating and relaxing. And outdoor spring cleanup at USNH. Please bring your own tools if possible. We will all wear masks and keep our distance. This has been a joyous spring event, made sweeter because of our isolation for so long. Email Jane Copes or call her if you can help or have any questions. Thank you.
The call to worship is Invitation by Shel Silverstein. If you are a dreamer, come in. If you are a dreamer, a wisher, a liar, a hoper, a prayer, a magic bean buyer, if you're a pretender, come sit by my fire, for we have some flax golden tales to spin. Come in, come in.
Today's chalice lighting comes to us courtesy of Soul Matters. Like the spark that ignites this flame, may our time together kindle the stories that offer us warmth when life feels cold or lonely, and guidance when we lose sight of our way. Covenant lies at the center of how Unitarian Universalists gather in community. We are united not by a particular set of beliefs, but by the promises we make about how we will be together, how we will treat each other, and how we will seek to mend relationships when we fall short of our aspirations. While the following words express our intentions in writing, true covenant lives and breathes in our actions. Please join me now in reciting the words that appear on your screen. We covenant together to create and nurture a culture of respect and kindness, and to engage in the spiritual and everyday practice of loving more generously. To this end, we will strive to Be open. Value differences. Listen deeply. Use kind language. Speak our truths. Work with conflict. Seek humor and joy.
Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, 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 Alhamdulillah.
Good morning and happy May. I am very excited that it's May because our worship theme this month is story. And many of you know how important story is to me. I learn through stories, I teach through stories, I expand what I know about my neighbors and friends and people around the world through stories. So I'd like to share a story with you today that comes from the Islamic faith tradition. It's called Muhammad, P-B-U-H, and the Garbage Thrower. I say P-B-U-H after saying his name because it comes from a phrase that when translated into English means peace be upon him, and it's a sign of respect. In a town in Saudi Arabia, years and years ago, 1,400 years ago, the Prophet Muhammad, P-B-U-H, would make his way into the center of town every day to preach and to talk about a new idea. People at the time believed that there were many, many, many gods. And the Prophet Muhammad, P-B-U-H, was preaching the idea of one God, Allah. There were people in this town that did not like his message at all. One of them was a woman who lived along his path towards the middle of town. She said to herself, I am going to teach everybody a lesson and show them that this guy is a fraud. And so what she did was she saved up her garbage for an entire day and put it in a big basket. And her thought was, if I throw this garbage on him, he'll get angry and he'll totally lose his cool. And we'll see him as just another person. So, when she knew he'd be coming, she made her way up onto the roof, and she stood there waiting and smiling and thinking about the sense of satisfaction she was going to have when he walked by and got all mad because of the garbage, and then she heard him coming. And when he was right below, she dumped that garbage all over him. But you know what? He barely even paused. He just kept right on walking with a serene smile on his face. People say today that when a person is praying and is in contact with their divine, nothing can distract them. And perhaps that's what was happening with the Prophet Muhammad, P-B-U-H, at that moment. Well, this frustrated the woman immensely. She said to herself, I am going to try this again. And the next day, there she was with a basket full of garbage waiting for him to pass below. And when he did walk below, she dumped the garbage all over him again. And again, he kept on walking with a smile on his face and proceeded towards the center of town. Oh, this woman was so angry at that point. She said, I'm going to do this every day until he breaks. So the next day, garbage. The day after that, garbage. For a whole week, she threw garbage right on his head. And never once did he get angry. Never once did he lose that smile on his face. Well, a full week, as I mentioned, went by. And one day, he was walking out to the center of town, and he walked under this woman's house, and nothing happened. No garbage came on his head. But instead of feeling happy or satisfied or overjoyed, he thought to himself, I hope she's okay. She wasn't here to throw the garbage on me. So he walked right over and knocked on her door. Who is it? Came a voice from inside. It is me, Muhammad. And she thought to herself, oh, that's it. He has come to take revenge on me. All of these times I've thrown garbage on him. Now he knows I'm sick and weak, and he's going to come in and let me have it. But there was something in the way that he had talked that was so gentle she couldn't refuse, and she allowed him to come in. He sat down at her bedside and he said, I missed you this morning. Are you okay? She said, the truth is I'm very sick. And much to her surprise, he said, can I get anything for you or help you in any way? She thought for a moment and was so embarrassed about how she had treated him, but she was very thirsty, and so she asked him for a glass of water, which he quickly got up and filled a cup and brought it to her and helped her drink. And every day for 3 or 4 days after that, he came and took care of her and helped her eat and help her drink until she was well again. And this is a story that continues to be told as a way to illustrate something we call today the golden rule, that you should treat others the way that you would want them to treat you. And so we thank the Islamic tradition, and we thank the Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, for this story, and we send blessings to all who hear it.
I now invite you to join me in holding in our hearts the joy and sorrow of those around you, closing your eyes and going inward if you are comfortable doing so. Today, some woke with a sorrow so great they asked for the help of this community to carry it. Others woke with a joy so great it must be shared. I will now read some of the joys and sorrows that have been shared with this community. David Schaefer recently moved to Benchmark Senior Living and would really appreciate visits. Please contact Jamie in the office at office@usnh.org for more information. USNH member Christina Allen and her husband Derek Dobrik are grateful to announce that after many arduous months, Christina has completed active treatment for breast cancer. Christina and Derek have been deeply humbled by the support received from the USNH community throughout her treatment. For the joys and sorrows that haven't been spoken, but which remain in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts, we bear witness.
As spring unfolds, I've been thinking about forces seen and unseen. The vibrant forsythia, the exuberant rhododendrons, the cherry trees' modest curtains. Every bloom gorgeous, yet each just an outward expression of the life rising within them. We, too, each have our unique beauty, and we, too, are expressions of life itself. As we spend some time in silence, I invite you to listen for your heartbeat, for the life force moving within you.
Just as our stories will have a lasting impact on the world, so will the important work we do at USNH. Your contributions help make that work possible. Every week, we lift up the spiritual value of generosity by taking an offering for the ministries of this congregation. We support each other and our community. You can donate securely online through Venmo at donate@usnh.org or by sending a check to 700 Hartford Turnpike, Hamden, Connecticut, 06517. Thank you. Today's reading comes from the writer and storyteller Neil Gaiman. My cousin Helen was in the Warsaw Ghetto during World War II. She and a bunch of the girls in the ghetto had to do sewing each day. And if you were found with a book, it was an automatic death penalty. She had gotten hold of a copy of Gone with the Wind, and she would take 3 or 4 hours out of her sleeping time each night to read. And then, during the hour or so when they were sewing the next day, she would tell them all the story. These girls were risking certain death for a story. And when she told me that story herself, it actually made what I do feel more important. Because giving people stories is not a luxury. It is actually one of the things you live and die for.
Loud are the bells of Norwich, and the people come and go. Here by the Tower of Julian, I tell them what I know. Ring out bells of Norwich, and let the winter come and go. All shall be well again, I know. All shall be well, I'm telling you, let the winter come and go. All shall be well again, I know. Love like the yellow daffodil is coming through the snow. Love like the yellow daffodil is Lord of all I know. Ring out bells of Norwich, and let the winter come and go. All shall be well again, I know. All shall be well, I'm telling you, let the winter come and go. All shall be well again, I know. Ring for the yellow daffodil, the flower in the snow. Ring for the yellow daffodil and tell them what I know. Ring out bells of Norwich, and let the winter come and go. All shall be well again, I know. All shall be well, I'm telling you, let the winter come and go. All shall be well again, I know.
Do you know the story about the man who got too quiet? There was a boy named Mahjub who studied the qualities of mind expected of devout Muslims. He knew he loved Allah in his heart, so he listened especially closely to his teachers about how he could show this to the world and to be a good example to others. He was much like his classmates in trying to be humble and tolerant, doing his best in his actions, and ordering the good while forbidding the bad. But the one external quality where he excelled while the other children struggled was silence. Mahjub was really good at being silent. Of course, this was a great relief to his teachers. One child in the room who wasn't screeching and squealing all the time. He received a great deal of praise for being quiet. "Why can't you be more like Mahjub?" his teachers would ask the other students. "He will certainly be blessed by Allah." At home with his family, Mahjub's parents reinforced the lesson. His mother's favorite proverb was, "Open your mouth only if what you are going to say is more beautiful than silence." And his father was certain Mahjub would become a great scholar, thinking deep and holy thoughts in the place of the chatter and gossip of the marketplace. And during Salat, the daily prayers, Mahjub liked the silent ones best. Those were the times when he felt as though nothing got between him and Allah. He also found that the more that he kept silent, the more people treated him as though he were wiser than he expected, kinder than he felt, and more intriguing than he thought warranted. But perhaps they recognized something in him that he didn't see in himself. So Mahjub tried to say as little as possible at all times. Over the years, he developed a sophisticated system of gestures and glances to communicate his meaning. It got to the point where he didn't use words at all, even during prayer. Pretty soon, people started calling him the Silent Sage, and coming from all over to see him. They'd line up around the block, waiting for a chance to tell him their problems and receive his counsel. He would listen carefully and then concentrate his thoughts to send his advice. And oftentimes, they would know his intentions exactly. But it seemed that just as often, they heard something quite different. Something that seemed like another good idea, but had little to do with his own conclusion. They still praised Allah for Mahjub's wisdom, though, so he tried not to worry about it too much. He'd just focus harder next time. One day, the person standing next to Mahjub in the mosque had a particularly beautiful voice, like the thunder that announces the cooling rains. He felt especially blessed by his neighbor's presence, as though Allah had sent the man just for him. So he decided he would sing the prayers that day too. Then Allah would know he was paying attention to this special gift. But no sound would come out. Not a note, not a word, not even a creak, not even the sound of his breath. Mahjub was unsettled, but figured he was just out of practice using his voice. He'd try again when he got home. When he got home, though, he still couldn't speak. And try as he might over the next several days, Mahjub couldn't make a peep. What's more, he realized that he had lost all of his words. He could picture things in his mind, but he didn't know their names. He felt a jumble of emotions, but he couldn't tell anyone what they were. He listened to the people who came to him, and they seemed to figure out solutions even when he had no thoughts to send them at all. On his way home from the market a week later, as he turned over and over in his mind what had been happening to him, he accidentally turned down a hidden and unfamiliar alleyway. And at the other end of the street, he saw a man robbing and beating a woman. He tried to call out for the man to stop, but only silence came out of his mouth. The thief looked up and saw him, but his face quickly turned from panic into a sly smile of relief when he saw who the witness was. He smiled as he made his escape, knowing that the silent sage would never say a word. Mahjub knew that he had to do something. He tried fasting, he tried praying, he redoubled his efforts to be humble and tolerant. And when those didn't seem to help, he decided he needed some time alone, away from the distractions of the city, to understand what was going on. So he went out into the desert and walked, and walked, and walked. It seemed to him that with each step, his mind grew more blank, and his feet became harder to move. He had become so thoroughly silent that his entire body was shutting down, turning him into a pillar of stone. Finally, he came to a complete halt. a rocky outcropping in the arid landscape, unable to move another inch. As Mahjub stood there, knowing that his life was draining from him, the last thing he could sense was his pulse waning in his blood vessels. Suddenly, though, a verse from the Quran flashed through his mind. Now, verily, it is we who have created man, and we know what his innermost self whispers within him, for we are closer to him than his neck vein. In that moment, he knew that Allah was with him. Even as the pillar that was Mahjub's body stood exposed to the desert winds, battered and eroding, Mahjub was reaching towards Allah, an alif rising from the sand. He knew that Allah could still hear him, even when he had deafened himself through silence. Then the winds dropped for a second, and Mahjub heard a voice. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And he knew exactly what the words meant. In the name of God, most gracious, most compassionate. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The voice kept chanting the phrase over and over, as though someone were leading a zikr in the middle of the desert. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And then Mahjub realized that it was he who was singing. It was he who was bowing to the divine and dancing his way back home. It was his voice that came as the cooling rains. People still flocked to him for advice on their problems. But now he helped not only by listening, but also by talking with them, asking hard questions, offering consolation, and telling them his thoughts directly, and occasionally just by sitting with them in silence.
Praise the source of faith and learning that has sparked and stoked the mind with a passion for discerning all the world has been designed. Let the sense of wonder flowing from the wonders we survey keep our faith forever growing and renew our need to pray. Source of wisdom, we acknowledge that our science and our art and the breadth of human knowledge only partial truth impart. Far beyond our calculation lies a depth we cannot sound, where the purpose for creation and the pulse of life are found. May our faith redeem the blunder of believing that our thought has displaced the grounds for wonder which the ancient prophets taught. May our learning curb the error which unthinking faith can breed.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
What stories do you tell about yourself, about your life, about your dreams? Are they stories that excite you? Do they rob you of hope? Do they help you pay attention to the world in a new way? May we weave tales that give each other life, however arid the surroundings may seem. Go in peace, my friends, with courage and with kindness, and be a blessing to the world. Amen, and blessed be.